Bet horse racing on DRF Bets. We'll match your first deposit of $200. Get free expert picks and past performances, plus weekly cash back. All from Daily Racing Form, the most trusted name in horse racing. Dan Illman, Mike Beer for Breeders' Cup Prep Recap. We're going to take a look at the Grade 1 8-Challenge Jerkens Memorial for 3-year-olds going 7/8 of a mile. This year, a prep race for both the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile and the Breeders' Cup Sprint. It features Jack Christopher. And as we break from the gate, Jack Christopher, odds on in the Jerkens, is the number 6. And as usual, he gets forward position.
Yeah, he's just a really handy horse, Dan. He doesn't need the lead, and he's going to concede the lead here to an informed Conacher up the rail, up the backstretch in here, but he's just going to sit really comfortably, track this horse until it's time to go, and you'll see what happens when it's time to go.
And it seems that this is the trip he pulls in most of his races, where he's able to get handy out of the gate, get outside of another speed, make his move on the turn, and blow this field away. The Jerkens, of course, is the premier race for 3-year-old dirt sprinters in the country, but maybe not the strongest group this year, Mike.
It wasn't a super strong field. That's certainly fair to say. Jack Christopher is going to get another perfect trip in winning this race, but he's going to win it, impressively again, Dan. And that's what this horse does in his one-turn races, particularly. He wins, and he wins impressively. He also wins in fast time. And at the end of the day, the horse that's right behind him right now in those maroon silks, Gunite, I mean, he's no superstar, but he's a really game horse. He's in really good form right now, and Jack Christopher really gives this horse no chance.
And not only is he all of those things, but he also loves Saratoga. He won the Hopeful there at 2. He won the Amsterdam, the local prep leading up to the Allen Jerkens, and he does not stop trying at all in the stretch. Jack Christopher is just better than he is. Gunite had a fine trip following his cover. He's hung on his left lead all the way down to the wire, but Gunite would flatter this form because he would come back to win a stakes race at Churchill Downs with a 101 Buyer's speed figure. Jack Christopher is probably the best one-turn 3-year-old in the country right now. The Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, a race that they're seriously considering, is at 2 turns, and the only loss on Jack Christopher's page came in his only prior 2-turn start, the Haskell, although that was against tougher competition, going 1 mile and 1/8.
Yeah, that was 9 furlongs, and it was against, a couple of really, really good 3-year-olds. And he also ran fine in that race. It's not like it was a total disaster, and you just feel like this horse just can't stretch out. The 2-turn mile is probably within his scope. It'll be interesting to see what they do with him, Dan. Are they dead set on going in that race? Because I think it'd be pretty tough in the sprint.
I think he'd be very tough in the sprint, and I also think that's a race that people would like to see. Jackie's Warrior, the better older sprinter, Jack Christopher, the best 3-year-old dirt sprinter, facing off in a sprint that just seems to lack a little bit of pizzazz. The Dirt Mile just seems like it's a much tougher race. Horses like Cody's Wish would be in that race, horses like Laurel River. It looks like a very tough spot, to be sure. That being said, Jack Christopher fits in both from a Buyer speed figure standpoint. He earned a 104 in the Jerkens, and I think the 2-turn Dirt Mile is well within his scope. Let's talk a little bit about Gunite, because I think he might be a little bit sneaky in the sprint, Mike. His lead changes haven't been very nice in his last 2 races, but he's a horse that always seems to bring it every time he shows up on the track.
Yeah, he really does. He's a real game horse. And again, he's not going to pull a lot of accolades, Dan. He's not the flashiest horse in the world. But man, does he, to show up and run, and he's got good tactical speed as well. So, if you run him in a race like the sprint and they go fast in front of him, he won't lose contact, but he'll still finish.
As for the others in here, I think the best I could say is Conacher is a nice listed grade 3 type, sort of a sprinty type. I don't think he's a Breeders' Cup type horse. Accretive is very lightly raced. I think he's a horse to tab for next year for Chad Brown, because he's shown some flashes this year at 3.
Yeah, I mean, that horse, he came into this Jerkens with only 2 prior starts. So you certainly want to keep an open mind about him going forward. He ran really, really fast races in his first 2 starts. He looks like he could be okay. But you're right, earlier on when you were saying, it wasn't the strongest, grade 1 sprint you've ever seen. And it certainly wasn't that. The 1-2 finisher is really nice. The rest of them, okay.
Let's take a look A closer look at Jack Christopher, a son of the very fleet stallion Munnings out of a half-hour's mare. Chad Brown is the trainer. Jose Ortiz is the jockey. 5 of 6 lifetime. Again, the only loss came in the Haskell, and they really stretched him out to 1 1/8. But his performance in the Woody Stevens going 7/8 of a mile might have been the most impressive one-turn race from a 3-year-old this year.
Yeah, that was another grade 1 sprint for 3-year-olds that didn't have anybody in it. But it doesn't kind of matter when you see the way that Jack Christopher won that race. Listen, this horse is just really hard to knock down. I haven't been his biggest fan, mostly because it seems like there may be some issues with this horse. He doesn't run very often, but now he's run 4 times this year. He really hasn't had a break since they returned him from the layoff, and he's run well every single time.
He has been training down at Keeneland, a bullet workout on October 15th, 5/8 of a mile. He seems to like it there. It'll be interesting to see where Chad runs the very talented Jack Christopher. Will it be the sprint against the older Jackie's Warrior? Will it be in perhaps a more competitive dirt mile going 2 turns? Either way, he's a marquee name in this year's Breeders' Cup. Let's take a look at the prices for the HL and Jerkens. Jack Christopher was 1-2. He paid $320. The Game and Genuine Gunite was second, $430 to place. Long Shot Runnin' Son of a Gun ran an even third, $710 to show. Jack Christopher, Chad Brown, on his way to the Breeders' Cup. It's just whether it's the dirt mile or the sprint.